John just called and said he was going to be a few minutes late and to go ahead and start the meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order, and we can at 9:10. And the first item on our agenda is the Weicker COFA 2. One, to approve a generator on the south side of the house, and the other is to approve the addition of one propane tank on the northern side. Right. At the meeting the other day, we requested more information from the Weickers on the make and size of the unit. Of the two units. So the Kohler, it's a Kohler 20 RCA automatic generator with the dimensions 47 long, 26.5 inches, 26.2 wide, and 32 inches high.
32. Yeah. That's standard. Yeah.
And so, should we act on that one first?
Was there a question about the fencing or the materiality? Was that the only question? Just want to make sure we got all the information.
That was the only question. We were going to check on the dimensions, right, and then approve it with the condition that it has a lattice.
The lattice screening and shrubbery, did we say? Or just the lattice screening?
There's a lot of shrubbery there already. But we should just go ahead and say the shrubbery will remain.
Okay.
Should we say that?
Yeah. And I think it's important that we state that the lattice screening, the elevation of it be at or above the unit, right? And it's a three-sided, because the unit is up against the house. And now on the tank, there's currently a tank there, right? And do we need a screen on the other side? Yeah. And do we need a screen on the tank or not?
It is screened. You don't see it. It sits behind a shed that is existing.
Yeah. Okay.
But we could approve it and say that it shall always be.
Shall maintain screening.
Maintain screening
from visible screening from Lime Street. And are they back?
Are they visible from Library Lane?
Yes, I was wondering. Yeah.
On the north side?
Not because of all the shrubbery. I mean, it's a big garden.
I haven't done a site visit, so I can't visualize it.
Yeah.
Should we just have it maintained
from public accessible?
Right.
Kind of like we can request screening there too.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Keep it like a precedent blanket of the lattice coverage to the height to the evergreen or.
It's the term that's in the sheet we just approved, because it says the.
You mean the COFA?
Our standard, our summary sheet.
Yeah.
The language is in there, which is great.
Okay. Well, shall we make those motions?
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the C of A of the Weicker generator installation with screening on three sides of the unit, with the screening being at an elevation that meets or exceeds the elevation of the unit, and that maintains obstructed views to the unit from, well, I don't like that terminology. I guess we could say that. Maintains obstructive views from Lime Street. We also request, do we want to specify the type of vegetation?
Evergreen.
Evergreen plantings in front of the lattice screening. Let's put lattice in there, yeah.
On at least the two sides. Let's just say it's three.
Yeah.
On two sides, yeah. Yeah. Is this one motion, or do we need to make two separate for the tank and the...
I think we need two because they're two separate codes.
Okay, so that's the
Yeah.
first motion.
So Russ has made that motion, and I'll second it, or you second it. Okay. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Great. Okay.
We're working on the Weicker.
Martha is on the phone.
Martha's here.
Oh, hi, Martha. Sorry I'm
Hi,
late.
John.
Okay.
Do you want to go ahead and make the second motion, Russ?
Okay, I'll make a motion that the additional propane tank at the Weicker North facade C of A is accepted with screening, with lattice screening on three sides, such that views from public access, accessible roads are obstructed, and that the screening rises to the elevation of the height of the...
Or at least as high.
At least as high as the tank.
There's more than one tank, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that
Ready one.
evergreen screening is provided on, I think, two sides facing the public accessible roadways, which are Lime Street and Library Lane.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Motion passes.
Do you want to keep going?
What?
Keep chairing?
No?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I have 4 handouts. For me, it's always easier to have paper. So the first one is the draft response that we started talking about at the last special meeting that Carolyn prepared. So let me pass around copies of that here.
By the way, I've not heard anything about the last meeting, what happened at the last meeting after I left, so don't assume that I'm familiar with the conversation.
Okay. I can't
I
remember.
left at 11, right after lunch.
We didn't talk
we
any...
discussed-
We didn't have any
didn't talk
discussion after.
We did.
about
So
this
I'm
topic.
talking about the discussion at the last special
The
meeting.
last special
Okay,
meeting.
understood.
Right.
The second is I did send some follow-up questions to Eric Knapp about zoning issues, and my follow-up questions are in bold and his responses are below the bold. This is the full set of questions I had asked him earlier as well.
I have my own copy with markups.
You've got your
I have
copy.
it.
I have. This is the LACFA petition. It's not completely up to date. This is the one that was relabeled. This was not the latest one we've seen. The latest one we've seen is labeled 5.15 rather than 5.14. The latest one we've seen has a slight difference in language with respect to cafes and bistros, I believe. This is really not up to date, and it's missing some language that I'll refer to in the discussion. That language appears on page 7. Sorry, it appears in Eric's answer to my question about 7.7 and 7.82.
Isn't that at the end?
Yeah,
It's
it
the
is
very
towards
last
the
page.
end.
In mine, it's page 7.
No, that's not where it is.
Well, so are you asking about 7?
Yeah, but the language I'm looking for that's on the missing page of Loam's proposal is here, on the very last page. That this is the language that says this regulation does not replace or amend any existing regulation. I just wanted to make sure we had that language. And then the last one is some suggested revisions to Carolyn's draft based on the conversation we had with Terry Loam on Monday and based on Eric Knapp's replies. So, lots of paper.
Right. This is on the, okay. Oh. Did you get this, Russ? I think it's, no.
Yeah, I
You
have
have,
a couple
okay.
extra copies.
Okay.
So, where would you like to start? I would suggest perhaps that we just revisit what may have been an emerging consensus at the last special meeting about how we should proceed, and then talk about the letter, the draft, Carolyn's draft, and any possible changes to it, and then talk about how we want to proceed at the zoning meeting next Monday.
Right. That's
I think that's excellent, John. Let's start with the emerging consensus so we can decide what our main argument is and if it's changed at all.
Okay.
That's great.
Based on what you've heard from Terry Loam on Monday, and based on Eric's responses, which I circulated to you, do you see any reason to change the thrust of our actual proposal to the zoning authority that appeared in the draft?
I don't. I think that our meeting on Monday raised even more questions. So I feel that until I suppose if I had to say, I would prefer that no decision is taken by the zoning hearing until all of us, including abutters and neighbors and the HDC and interested parties have a more complete understanding of what impact this will have on the current zoning and on, in our case, on the HDC.
Okay.
I suppose I'd also say I would like to think that there's a way other than this overlay to support the activities of these 4 institutions on a case-by-case basis. Loam made the point that that was not possible because these special permit applications would have to be submitted to the ZBA, and the ZBA would then question the hardship. And under that process, they might be denied. I would like to think there's another process.
I don't know that that statement of his applied to every possible initiative that one of the nonprofits might want to take, but yeah, I think it would be good to at least have a broader discussion with zoning and the community about alternatives to what Loam proposed. I said, Deb, I saw your head nodding in agreement with what Deanie said.
Right, but can we request no action? Is that the best stance without making like we can't, we're asking for a withdrawal, but can we request no action until further, or do we just say we request no action and then state, our concerns?
Well, we're making a proposal to zoning, so we can't request withdrawal. It would have to be withdrawn by Loam if LACFA were so inclined.
But can we say request no action, like that's our opinion?
That's our proposal. I'm trying to stick with that language because that's where we have statutory authority to make zoning, to make proposals to zoning and planning.
Is that different from, because see, I think that what's been presented that they're apparently voting on is incongruous and unwinds many years of effort to protect the historic district. I'm just wondering if this statement is it no action, or is the statement that we feel that this should be rejected and a new effort be undertaken? And I don't know what we can and can't do, John, but it seems to me that what's being proposed, and we've heard it, has so many things that can unwind the residential historic character of the historic district, that the proposal that we're in disagreement or think that this proposal should be rejected.
Well, we do have in the draft attachment a statement that if the overlay initiative moves forward, that we are proposing a certain set of revisions.
Right.
And I think those revisions would narrow considerably the potential adverse consequences. I mean, for example, we've talked about how broad the allowance of recreational activities might be.
What would you think about altering that sentence to begin with what both of you have suggested, that our recommendation is that the proposal be withdrawn, but
we can't
withdraw.
We can't. I mean, we're proposing something to zoning, so zoning can't withdraw it.
Is there any language that you would like to use different from that language, which would convey that idea, or not? I'm not choosing that. I'm just asking because I'm hearing that from
that either it's if zoning doesn't approve it or it's modified in a way that doesn't impact the historic district as it currently does. I mean, how do you say that? I don't know how.
I mean, I think we have that in there.
Yeah.
Or that's in the draft. I mean,
Okay.
There's a statement that we propose that existing provisions of the zoning regulations not be altered, and then the backup is
There you go. It does say that. That's right.
But my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're not asking them to change the regulations. They keep arguing that we're not changing the regulations, that we're adding new regulations.
That's correct.
That's like their point,
Right.
central point,
That's right.
right? So just to,
So we need to be sure that we are being persuasive in spite of the fact that they will insist that we're not changing the regulations.
Well, but that point does suggest that instead of saying this is the top of page 2 of Carolyn's draft, the boldface language that recommends the existing provisions not be altered, saying not be amended.
And the other thing, not be amended, that's good.
I mean, I think the key is also, what we're really saying is what we see in front of us is not something that should not be an overlay of the historic district in the form that it's, period, could be. I mean, that could be one of our ultimate positions, is the historic district is an overlay, a second overlay.
That's right.
Right? Or is it that the proposal as written is not an overlay that works with the historic district overlay?
Well, I'm a little reluctant to suggest that the historic district be proposed as an overlay, or at least not using those terms, because the district, I mean, we don't have jurisdiction over uses.
Right.
We can propose to zoning
Right.
action that would preserve the character of the historic district.
Got it. Makes sense.
we could make the recommendation, well, I mean, again, another case, but what the HDC can do is make a recommendation that the zoning commission continue to follow the zoning commission's own recommendation, own regulations. I mean, in other words, not alter them. So that's something we can say as a HDC.
Continue as they are.
But I think John has already...
And I think that's stated here.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's good.
Not be amended is a very important change, John.
Not be amended, I agree.
I think that's...
Didn't Lowe mention something in this, John, or where did I read it, that didn't he state that the historic district itself is an overlay
No,
on top of zoning?
it's not.
It is.
I mean, the current zoning regs don't provide that the historic district is an overlay.
Didn't he
It's just
answer
a
that?
separate statutory scheme.
It's not a zoning.
I understand. I'm trying to think what language to express that.
Right.
I don't know that we need to say anything.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so tentatively, if we're okay with the main letter, let's turn to the...
I had one
Oh, okay,
comment.
go ahead.
I had one comment. So if, under item 2 proposal, where it says the Lime Academy's recent initiative to create a new overlay zone that will attract and encourage additional nonprofit commercial ventures and non-residential uses on Lime Street, I feel like that we need to make some statement about that is, and I just wrote that is incongruous with the historic character of the historic district. In other words, just stating, and maybe people feel like it's stating enough by saying that commercial ventures and non-residential uses is the problem. It seems like we need to take it one step further and say that it doesn't align with the character or the residential nature of the historic district.
I think that's fine.
Yeah, just say
That are
that,
incongruous, I'll just add that to the sentence.
Yeah.
What about the attract and encourage? I couldn't decide what words to use there. I would appreciate your thought on that. I think that's what we mean.
Well, see,
Strong.
the concern with that is that Loam, from his perspective, he thought that was a positive thing.
well, that's where, I mean, people
Right.
may,
They may-
and that may be the crux
No.
of the debate.
This is the crux of,
Right, so,
I mean, all we can do is
Yeah, yeah.
represent the
Right.
historic district's perspective.
Right.
That's all we can do.
right,
And we have a mandate to preserve the historic, aesthetic, et cetera.
maybe instead of encourage, maybe it's result, will attract and result in additional nonprofit. Encourage is such a positive statement, it kind of leans in.
I agree, that's why I'm
We
asking
use
your
your
help on that.
big draw.
That's how I would,
Result in is better, it's more neutral.
yeah.
Okay.
And attract, is attract too positive?
Yes, that's very positive.
Let's figure out a better word.
attract, because that's what everyone
Well,
wants.
you
Well,
just
how
take
about
that
just,
away,
how
will
about just,
result in.
will result in?
Yeah,
The
exactly,
result.
yeah.
Much better.
Mhm.
That's what I really want from you, especially Russ, all the way through, is those little micro changes make a big difference
Yeah.
in the tone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, I struggle with it, but I need your fresh eyes.
Yep.
Should we read it through? See what it sounds like? Being read, because that's what we're going to do.
Are we gonna read
We
the whole
still
thing?
need to talk about that.
I would,
but-
we need to talk about it, but I would recommend somebody reading the letter. I mean,
That's
it's
what I
not
mean.
that long, it's a little over 2 pages.
Right.
As in the.
You mean in the
current
meeting or
draft.
right now?
In the meeting.
Yeah.
The meeting, yeah.
And then maybe briefly summarize some of the revisions that we make in the backup proposal.
Okay, let's move on then, and can I ask each of you read the letter again after the meeting and send me word changes? That would really be helpful.
Mhm.
Because you don't want negative spin
Right.
on this.
No.
You want to state some facts
Yeah.
along the way, but we don't want to be too over, like we're against everything kind of change.
Well,
But you don't want to say traffic, like the usual typical zoning roadblocks, like traffic and noise and that kind of thing.
Light.
Right. But yet, is that going to
Those
be?
are considerations.
They are.
In fact, maybe,
Right.
and we don't mention them.
Right.
I mean, there's a letter from a resident that mentions those things that relate more to the experience of people that actually live in the historic district, which is not our, but
I think that's a really good point.
Does that water it down, though, I wonder? In other words,
I know, because that's.
you know, if we just say
Roadblock.
it's incongruous, or it doesn't mesh with the historic district.
I think I mean, my first reaction, Deb, I mean, it's all true,
Right.
But
but
it's not the time to mention it.
it gets really picky. I mean,
Right.
that's
Right.
part of the reason why
Right. You
there's
want to maybe keep that
incongruity.
a little superficial.
Um,
But yet it would be good to be mentioned, perhaps like a neighbor could, that's like,
They
you know,
are.
a duty of the neighbor to say, it's going to be there's going to be trucks and there's going to be,
Well, it could be part of the statement, maybe, that whoever reads the letter adds those points
Maybe you could just go in that sentence that I just provided with your recommendation.
I would make,
Incongruous
yeah, I might
with the
make,
historic character of the HD, and then just through additional traffic noise and light, just 3 words, just to have it stated, mentioned.
It's more than that.
Yes.
And that's the problem, is if you start listing, it's more than that.
Through, among other,
well,
or leave it out. What, can we talk about it just a minute?
sure. I was going to say, if we do that, what you're suggesting, then the sentence that begins the Lime Academy's recent initiative will result in, stop that sentence after Lime Street and say, such ventures and uses are because of impact on traffic, and we could list a few of the other reasons just in the course of that because phrase. Such commercial ventures and non-residential uses are incongruous with the historic character of the district.
But then wouldn't zoning say, well, those are under our purview to evaluate?
Well, it is,
Well,
they
it
are,
is,
but again, we
we
can
could
make
say it.
zoning proposals.
Yeah.
And we can say it. I mean, it doesn't mean we have the jurisdiction
Right.
to say it.
The question is, does it strengthen or weaken the argument? That's the only...
Because, I mean, I think our argument is that Lime Street is residential in nature, historically, right? Primarily. And
I guess it does get tricky. How do you succinctly and accurately summarize the reasons for the incongruity? So,
Right, you don't
second
wanna-
thought might be just leave it as it is, and then if you said a neighbor had contacted you about potential...
Well, I have sent me a copy
Right.
of the letter that they're proposing to say, I mean, they
Oh, did
address
they?
this
Okay.
they're addressing it as a resident, not as a, historic district commission, but just as someone who's lived under these zoning regulations for 30 years.
Right,
And this has the potential to change those conditions.
Right.
So that's what they're writing about.
And it's good to give the history and to say that our recommendation is for it not to be altered. And then you have to somehow say, because our main concern is that this is a big blanket that they're going to throw over and make this zone, that they can have canoeing, and they could have, somebody living there, and they can have this and that. And that's our problem, right, is that it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to have all of these things going on at this one campus. How do you state that without it making like, we don't want any changes, we don't want them to make, have additional income, but we need to somewhat stay positive and stay on the historic, and that our recommendation is that it remains, that is not amended. And then that's our statement. And then it's up to the neighbors to say, it's going to be too much traffic, it's going to be too much light, it's going to be too much. I don't think that we can get into that.
You don't want canoe rentals on Lime Street. I mean, I think the neighbors could say that, because, canoe rentals then become something much bigger. And then maybe there's snowmobile rentals right after.
Right. But it's
And hot dogs
The kayak
Dirt
rentals
bike
during
rentals.
axe throwing is...
During bird
Right.
hundreds of people.
Starbucks and Barnes & Noble and the Big Draw are possible.
Right.
So,
That's
and
right.
then we don't want to appear like, oh, we're just, we're against it all, and
Right.
that just doesn't fly right now,
Yes,
anywhere.
true.
It's, everybody looks down and says, what, you don't want to change, you don't want the real estate, like, we have so many negative factors outside of this, I think, working against us already. So, I think we really make our statement, and then it's up to, I think,
And then we
the
call on
actual,
the- yeah.
the neighbors, that's what I think, you have to have the people that have a, emotional stake in it.
And
Right.
also the press can amplify that. that neighbors are making statements about this, that, and the other. So that's where the role of the press can be important in alerting, residents and others.
Right, because the possibilities are there and they affect the people that are living here. Perhaps they are okay with it. That's the other thing.
Well, they don't know about it, number one.
Well, I think one other thing is the petitioner is trying to solve one particular problem, but the proposal is opening up opportunity for many problems across the district. In other words, it's kind of they're using a big hammer, a giant hammer to do something that needs something much smaller. And how do we get that in this language, I guess?
Right, and how to get that more defined under more control. And it's almost like you have to go to ZBA for each one of these things. And he said, we just don't want to do it. Our file's too big. I mean,
there was a lot of smoke and mirrors about, we want to make it easier for Eric Knapp, and we want to make it easier for somebody who's never even heard of Old Lyme in case they might ever want to come. Right?
Yeah.
I thought that was
very... and I don't know how to confine that into 2.5 letters or 2.5 pages.
Why don't they go through their file one time?
I know you said that.
Why do they go through it every time?
Clean it out.
That's so silly.
Right.
I think that's why it's important to reference the actual proposal, or to say that this proposal
allows
is a problem. It's not that some of the things that they're trying to seek is a problem. Is that the broadness and the lack of specificity, the generality of this proposal exposes the historic district to degradation that has been preserved over many years, and at an instant it opens it.
Right. We always have to have a problem with the proposal itself.
Well, maybe that appropriately comes by adding another sentence or two to the beginning introductory paragraph about the revision should zoning decide to go ahead.
First paragraph under background.
No. First paragraph of Carolyn's attachment.
I think it should go in the proposal section.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to be read. Well, at one point, and I just this is, we're talking all about part 2 of the draft letter rather than part 1, which is background. But Carolyn, I just thought this was a terrific presentation of the background. Because I think a lot of people don't, probably even on zoning, don't fully appreciate the rationale for the historic district. So it's good to get that out. Well, I think that a place to add it could be right at the start, where we're recognizing and commending the important role of nonprofit corporations. Then you simply say, add a couple sentences there that say what we've been saying. The Lyme Academy's proposal, however, is unfortunately, don't write this
it's
down,
broad,
but it's overbroad,
overreaching,
and permits a potentially wide and may have potentially unforeseen circumstances as well as foreseeable adverse circumstances.
I think Russ's statement was good.
Oh, yeah.
Broadness of the proposal exposes VHD to degradation. I don't know whether we want to find another word other than degradation, but that has been preserved carefully for X number of years.
Yeah.
It could be an end. It could be a conclusion.
Right.
And where would you put it, Deanie?
Well, I'm just...
I think I like the sentences too.
Right, because that has to be the statement.
Do you want it just at the very end of the proposal? As the
It sounds-
kicker, as they say, the conclusion, the kicker?
Well,
I think maybe
I don't
know. How about it-
that first paragraph.
how about making the last sentence of the first paragraph of the proposal a separate paragraph? I know that in general, writers hate one-sentence paragraphs, but that would be a way to say, here's our proposal.
Where were you saying?
Take
At the end
the
of paragraph
the
one.
last sentence of paragraph 1 of the proposal and make that a separate paragraph, and then we could add Russ's proposed sentence at the end of what's left of the first paragraph.
You mean the one we've changed, where we've changed altered to amended?
Correct.
Right in there?
Correct. Just that sentence that starts on the last line of page 2.
Yeah.
Make that into a paragraph of its own.
So do you?
I mean,
you
I don't
can
know.
look at
What do
that.
you think, Carolyn?
Yeah, I think either add Russ's sentence to that last sentence of the present paragraph 1, or add Russ's sentence, the Russ's sentence could go in the new paragraph 2, making both paragraphs two-sentence paragraphs.
Yeah,
But I'm
I
okay
sort of
with-
like the idea of, so they can say,
Oh, that's.
if they're looking at it, what are you proposing exactly?
Mhm.
Here it is.
So insert Russ's sentence at the end of the existing paragraph 1, and then make a new one-sentence paragraph 2.
Well, no.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what John is
You
suggesting.
mean the
Well, that's
one-sentence paragraph is Russ's statement?
No,
No,
the
the one
one
sentence
sentence paragraph
paragraph
is the
is
last
The
sentence.
Historic District
Okay.
Commission therefore strongly urges would be a one-sentence paragraph.
Okay.
Either way, I think it can be effective either way. Well, I mean, what I'm saying is both will work.
And then if you see existing zoning regulations, that paragraph stays intact, and the last one also stays. I think that's good.
Unless you all have changes.
No, I think to end on a
Yeah.
positive note is good.
And what that does, without getting into lighting and traffic and all that,
Right.
it says, what's being proposed is too broad, and it doesn't align with the history of the historic district.
Right.
Period.
And you've all.
Yeah, that's our
The
reason.
purposes.
Yeah, the purpose
And then
of
we
the district,
do
right.
other little, continue with the variances, the special permits, like that's how we've functioned
Right.
all of this time. And it's great that you said that we reference and we have a harmonious relationship with all of the other nonprofits,
Yep.
commercials, like we all work together. You gotta keep a little rosy at the end.
Yeah, positive.
I agree.
Positive support for the floor.
Okay,
So now,
are we ready to turn to the attachment?
Yes.
I mean, you had questions, I guess, Carolyn, you highlighted in bold wording, things you were struggling over. The rest of what you have in bold on page 3, I think is fine. Others may want to take a
I
look
think
at
it's
those.
okay.
Yeah.
You'll all have a chance to go over this one more time,
Okay.
with a fine tooth, with a microscope, with a magnifying glass.
Okay. So, let me start this discussion of the attachment, our revisions to the overlay zone initiative, if despite what we say in our proposal, zoning wants to go ahead with this. And just walk through what I would suggest adding or changing. The first one is just a detail. It's not 15.1, it's 15.15. And that's an edit to your thing, line 4.
I'm sorry.
Line 4 of your attachment,
Okay, 15.15.
15. So the other issues relate to some of Eric Knapp's responses The first response is on the first page. So that's where I got this idea, to add to 5.15 that this overlay zone may exist within 1,000 feet of 1,000 feet of, well, I didn't track Eric's language exactly, of a
Interchange off-ramp.
interchange off-ramp on a limited access highway.
Oh, so this is basically saying
Well, this is the question.
1,000 feet from I-95.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
Can we do-
question. We can, what Eric says is, we can't name specific parcels.
Properties,
We
right.
can't say this zone applies only to 90 Lime Street, but we can define the permissible geographic extent of the zone. So what this first suggestion of mine is, so much of our worry is, or part of our worry, is about, well, this is a precedent elsewhere in Lime Street.
Right,
Why should we even open it up?
right.
This is the focus of what they're concerned about. So let's define the zone so that it only could apply, if it does apply, to these arts organizations, arts and
Right.
project
But
organizations.
we don't, do you think we have the capability to draw zoning lines? I mean,
Well, not
1,000 feet, I feel like that's more of a zoning,
We're making a zoning proposal.
Proposal, right.
yeah, right.
I'm
We just have to make
I
sure.
don't know exactly how far 1,000 feet
I
extends.
don't either.
But
Like,
I'm picking up on.
See if I can,
what's 1,000 feet?
well,
Third of a football.
I'm going to see where it lands, see if I can figure out where it lands.
1,000 feet is just over the length of a football field.
Okay.
Let's-
But that would include all of those, if you're coming off the ramp.
Oh, yeah.
That's the intent,
But that's the intent.
Right.
that's the intent,
That's it. If you're going to have a zone.
but not beyond that.
that's
So
the
this
only
is
place
really
it could apply.
proposing that they reconsider this concept of an overlay zone and make it have geographic
Yes,
boundaries.
that's
right. Yes.
Because that's the, sort of the only way we really, any of us can get our head around this.
Correct.
If it's
And I
limited.
imagine that's what they've done with respect to Halls Road. Put in some generic language that if you read through it and apply it, the only possible place it could apply is Halls Road.
I think that's a brilliant idea, John, to state that. Let's see if I can measure.
Other reactions? I'll put that in.
Because what,
I'm happy.
We're happy, I think, happy to put it in. It isn't going to be a
We're-
final
we're
draft. either.
Exactly. We're presenting
Right.
an alternative.
Right.
We're saying,
Right.
if you're going to do this, make it as narrow as possible in scope so that next year we don't get the library and the youth services and, you know. that-
Was that his suggestion?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
measure, there we go.
So it would read, the change to my language would be this overlay zone may exist within 1,000 feet. If Russ or somebody
Yeah,
can find on a map
I'm
whether
trying
that's a
to do that.
reasonable district.
Yeah, trying to see if-
On either side, or just say within 1,000 feet of an interchange, you don't have to have on either side, within 1,000 feet of
The boundaries of the Lieutenant River.
of an interchange off-ramp. A limited access highway, well, what's interchange, what's an interchange mean?
I don't think this is an interchange. Interchange isn't one that
Well-
swirls around and goes off to two different highways. As
Well,
opposed to
just say
coming off
within
and
a
going onto a state road. I don't
What-
know.
But it
what
says
about
the
leaving
off-
it the way John has it?
Yeah.
What would we lose by stating it simply in his original language? This overlay zone may exist within 1,000 feet of a limited access highway, period.
Oh,
I
well,
think,
No, interchange.
don't make it too complicated.
Right.
but I just don't want,
But
well,
it is.
okay, I mean,
The off-ramp, but we can't say 95, you're saying, but it is, that's a big fact of it,
Yeah,
that it's right off the highway.
Mhm.
yeah.
maybe he meant interstate
Right,
off-ramp.
right.
Interstate highway off-ramp,
Is that his language, interchange?
yeah.
Or we-
But he may have just been,
You
he was
can
typing
say interstate,
highway off-ramp.
off-ramp or interchange, yeah. I'll look up interchange here in a minute, see.
Okay, so that was one sentence.
But the idea, I think, is great. Specific.
Is off-ramp one word? Yes.
I'm sorry?
Is off-ramp one word? I don't know. I'll look it up.
He has a
I think it's 2 words.
yeah.
Okay, my next suggestion relates to says, no new bulk regulations are proposed. My version of the draft regulation, this is the last page of Eric's NAP question and answer, says in bold, this is in bold on Loam's draft, this is the page we're missing. But Eric quotes it as, this is a new regulation and does not replace or amend any existing regulation regarding setbacks, building heights, or coverage. I might just say, does not replace or amend any any bulk zoning regulations. Because it's setbacks, it's building heights, it's lot coverage, it's maximum floor space.
So nothing in the overlay zone modifies or amends any bulk zoning regulation.
Replaces or amends.
There's no,
Replaces or amends, and so I take out from modifies to the end.
in their proposal, John, there was no mention of new construction or anything like that, is that right?
No.
Building heights and things would follow with current zoning, is that what it is?
That's what
Yes.
he said.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now that means that would apply. Well, anyway, this may relate to the last thing. Here's the background. I heard Terry Loam say on Monday that they wanted provision for even construction of a new building for housing with these, little apartments, no kitchens, to preserve their future options, basically.
Right.
Eric had a response to my questions about 7.7 and 7.8 of the zoning regulations, which he answered the first time, and I asked him again, and he basically chided me, saying, how can I state this more clearly? And he repeated his answer. But here's his statement. 7.7 and 17.8 must still be followed. 7.7 says you can only have apartments, apart from accessory apartments, you can only have apartments for employees. doesn't say anything about teachers or scholars or
For
scientists
employees.
or for non-paying guests.
So that's their interns, right?
They're visiting scholars.
No, but I mean,
Yeah,
students would be paying for their lodging.
Right, but the scholars maybe wouldn't, or
They would give them housing.
a lecturer who's coming to do
Yeah.
a workshop for a week
Okay.
or something like that, you know.
Well, that may affect what I propose. 7.8 is a provision for accessory apartments. And one of the requirements in there is that an accessory apartment must have a kitchen. So they're certainly not accessory apartments. I mean, Eric's saying pretty clearly you got to follow these housing provisions.
Yep.
They're certainly not employees, which limits their scope to non-paying guests. And where I'm going is, why don't we just delete everything it says about housing if they can't have it, and add a note that says, because of the restrictions in 7.7 and 7.8, it's the historic district, relying on advice or comments from Eric Knapp, thinks it's inappropriate.
That's the one thing, though, that RTPC, they're going to ZBA this month for this. This is the one thing that they want, is to take that little cottage existing.
Well, but then they can you can always apply for a variance.
Right, okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Okay, so here's the language in 7.7. Except as provided in 7.8.2, which is the accessory apartments must have a kitchen. No accessory building shall be used for dwelling purposes except by employees or non-paying guests of the occupant of a dwelling on the lot. So, well, is LACFA I guess they could say we're the occupant of a dwelling on the lot.
Right.
We might not be able to tangle with that then, right?
It was also one of the questions that the various zoning...
But we certainly couldn't change our proposal language to refer to, we're really getting into the weeds, aren't we?
Yeah.
Your eyes are, but I mean...
Right, if you want to touch on it, you could say refer to or whatever of the zoning.
They're the ones that are going to make this decision.
Okay.
You know. I think we fundamentally support them being able to have a place.
Well, what we probably should do then is, no living quarters should be rented to or used by, shall be rented to
I'm getting completely...
Okay, what we should,
I don't think this is productive.
Okay.
I just don't think it's productive.
Okay.
We need
but
to
we
figure
need
out how...
I can send you language. In other words, they are saying that, or our current proposal says, you can rent to all these different categories of people.
Mhm.
You can't rent to them. You can't rent to them unless they're employees, who these people are not.
Well, what if they
If
want to
they're not-
rent to their staff?
Huh?
What if they want to rent to their...
How about just
They
people
can't.
associated?
Oh, well, for their staff, I guess they
Or
could.
people
Well, that's
associated
not good.
directly.
We don't want them to be able to do that.
Okay, then we limit the categories of people who could occupy them. But what we have to add is that those people must be non-paying.
Okay, you give me language.
Oh, okay. But are we
Okay,
content
I think
with-
those actually
with
is
that?
in the regulations now, right? The zoning.
Yeah,
You're not allowed-
that's what it- right.
Right, so we're not
I just think we're all going to lose.
We are.
I'm going to lose my, if this isn't productive for me because there's too many big things that we have to still concentrate on.
Right.
Let me see if there are
So
any other,
that specific things are going to be amended anyway. If this goes forward, there's going to be so much pouring over this language.
Exactly.
What we need to
Just focus on is
figure
the-
our statement
our
that we're
statement,
going to make,
exactly.
because that's going to be the thing that it's going to be our, in an open forum.
I have one bigger picture question.
if I could just, give me 1 second.
Doing that 2 points, interchange is two roads that cross that are on the same plane, so it allows you to maintain traffic in one road.
Yeah,
like
so
that.
that's what I
So interchange is probably a good definition. 1,000 feet takes you to beyond the flow grids. It may be right at the Roger Torrey Peterson, I'm not exactly sure. And then it takes you south here, it may include the sculpture area.
But is that from the off-ramp, or is that from the?
Well, I took a general reading of that, not a specific, so.
So you can advise about that later.
Okay.
But that, just to give you an idea
Okay.
specifically.
That was the only big change I had. The others are minor wording things, and I can coordinate with Carol.
So on Monday, the proposal or our statement will be presented on Monday, correct? And then I just want to get this straight. The acceptance of what we would accept, that is going to be presented and sent to zoning later, correct?
That's a good question, yeah.
Because
this is
zoning, this is going to take
Okay.
months
yes.
for that. This is going to be...
Halls Raid took years.
10
And
years.
Halls Road, the same thing. They're going to be like 2 on one night. Really, like it's almost better that they're going to be completely overwhelmed by both this and that on Monday night.
So the proposal that we've informally discussed amongst each other was that someone would stand up and read the letter, so to speak, the statement publicly, and then hand the whole thing, bring it up here
Right.
to the table. But also, this whole thing would be entered upstairs in the zoning file on Monday morning. So that they will then send everything that's in the zoning file, and I think it may be overwhelming, as you say, for all the reasons you said, not to do with us, but to do with the other things, to all the commissioners, but at least they will have it in their hands to refer to. But that the person standing up is not going to go into 5.1.
Right,
No,
right.
we'd lose everybody.
Right, you
Yeah.
guys could keep it.
Well, and to that point, I think that I'm a little concerned, while the background is fantastic, being read, having just read something, right?
Yeah.
I think we have to be careful that we don't take too much time in that meeting before we actually get to our point. Do you see what I'm saying? So if we read this letter in its entirety,
Right.
that may be too much erudition, is the right word, for this public forum. Now, and I'm just a little concerned, having just read something to them, what the statement, you're standing right here.
Yeah.
You've got a whole bunch of people. Everybody knows it's a limited time, right? Because everybody. Yeah, and a lengthy discussion about the background
Good point.
may come across as
And we lose them before.
we might lose them before we get to the point.
We do make the proposal effectively in the first paragraph. We summarize what we're doing. Bing, bing, bing.
That's good.
And then
Yeah.
we could just come up with a Reader's Digest version of the background.
That's what I'm suggesting.
So I
But the
think
key points.
we don't want to lose we can lose some of the background, but I think the background is pretty important to our public statement.
But what we present them in writing about the background and what we read to them can be different.
Yes.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Yes, but we don't want to leave it out in the public forum.
Okay.
What I'm saying is to your point, John, a Reader's Digest, a speech versus a written text.
For dummies, for
Right.
dummies.
Right.
Yeah, in other words, what are the key points? I think cliff notes of this that is read to the group. I felt like what I presented the other night was a little too long. You know, in other words, when I read it, when you're sitting here reading it, it's fine, but when you're in front of a group,
When you're delivering it, it's
yeah,
different.
yeah.
So what about, do we need to, just for reading, do we need to read the entire first paragraph?
Probably not. The
Well, I would like that.
statute?
I would like that read, because I think the popular opinion, and even Loam coming
Mhm.
in the past, has said, you know, your jurisdiction is if somebody comes in and wants to put up a structure.
I think
I
that's
mean,
important.
I
I
don't-
think that's important.
I don't know if perhaps the first sentence could be condensed, but I'm not sure it should come first, but
We can leave off the last sentence.
How about we just leave out, such as the zoning commission that are interested in historic preservation and move forward to the next phrase to put forward? I mean, for reading, the written one will go as is.
yes.
Right.
So, to provide information, to cooperate with other regulatory agencies, and to put forward its own planning and zoning proposals.
Yes.
Is that all right?
Lay that
That's
one
good.
down, yep.
And I'm wondering if some of the last
And then leave
section
out,
under proposals should also be read.
so is that all we're going to say is the opener? We're not going
No.
to?
We would read the whole paragraph, but
Okay.
I'm condensing the first sentence.
Okay.
And I might, then we need to think of a way to condense the background to
We
a few
might not need
sentences.
The key points of the background. Right.
Not read that sentence.
and
because
then-
it's
Included as an attachment.
And then,
to read out loud.
Yeah.
And what you say here is a summary of our letter being submitted.
Right.
Here, we like to highlight, whoever's stating it, we like to highlight
some key points from.
Yeah, and it needs to be the language from the letter.
Right.
Right? So exactly, yeah.
I think the proposal sentences should probably be read.
Yes, the proposal
but
should be read in full.
The next to last paragraph, I don't know that needs to be.
So we're leaving in, we're leaving in the background in its entirety.
No, we're not. We're
Oh,
leaving
we've jumped to
everything in,
proposal.
but
Okay.
we're not reading the whole background.
Yeah, the Cliff Notes version of the background is what.
Okay.
And then the proposal should be,
Fully read, I think.
well, how about this paragraph that says the existing regulations?
I think that's sort of important.
I think it's
Right.
important because we want
Okay.
to
No, I think-
emphasize that
I
we
think
support.
probably-
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so I think what we read is the condensed version of the first paragraph.
Right.
That's in control. A short Reader's Digest summary of the background,
Right.
and then read the revised proposal part of it.
Right, I agree.
I also wonder whether I think maybe at the end, well, I just have a question. Should we say anything about the nature of our provisions? Should the zoning be inclined to proceed?
Why?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Why?
this is going to be gone over.
I mean, if they'll pay attention to them, then I don't think we need
Where
to.
they're going to have them. You know.
Because here's what's going to happen. I'm just thinking, so they're going to hear the HDC politically is against this thing, right? We asked them to meet with Loam. I think somehow that the statement has to end with a workable scenario. You can't put the tiger in the corner and not give them a way out. So if we don't think that, or if we think that simply saying you need to pull this puts them in a corner, I think we have to give them the out in that public statement to look at that language.
Well,
It could be just a sentence.
Right, because it does
You know,
say.
should the zoning commission, despite our proposal.
Yeah, that we're looking forward to continuing discussion or, to.
Working with.
Working with,
To maintain.
Right.
The,
That's right.
the expectations of the neighbors and the whatever. But
Right.
in the last sentence there, you can put a little tag out there saying, we will continue to.
we're here to work with you.
Yeah, we're
Exactly.
here to work with you, which is what, there has been a little bit of an echo
Should
of
we
that, but-
also, in the oral statement, and it needn't go in the letter, say that we've had a informative discussion with the attorney for LACFA and some helpful communications with the
I would.
CEO.
Yeah.
It shows we're working.
Better
It shows we're
understand
working and it
the
shows
impact
cooperative,
on the-
it shows
on the project,
cooperation.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right. It wasn't like we read it and rejected it.
Right.
We-
Right.
I might put that up front,
Up front.
after our statutory authority.
After consultation
You know.
with, right.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
That's good.
What's the end of that sentence? Since I'm going to write the oral sentences out so we can see them and read them.
What do
We
you,
have had informative conversations with the attorney for LACFA and helpful consultation with Eric Knapp.
Right, to better understand the
CEO.
impacts this project could possibly have on the
This
district.
proposal, yeah.
yeah, to better understand the potential impact of LACFA's proposal
Yeah.
in
And we've had
the historic
In
district.
fact, we've had multiple meetings. I mean,
Yeah.
I.e. lighting.
We really worked on that.
At that point, if you want to throw in a little zinger, i.e. lighting, noise, truck, whatever. If you don't want to, then fine, but if you were going to, that would be the point.
Okay, who's doing what? I think everybody knows except Carolyn, I cannot be there.
I nominate Russ.
No.
He did the first one, and therefore he can be doing it
Here's-
all. And he's very persuasive.
we all want to know.
No.
He has more public presence than I
Yes.
do.
I appreciate the nomination. I strongly feel that the chair of the Historic District Commission needs to make the statement to carry the weight of the Historic District Commission to the issue. I think it's important that one of the co-chairs, that's Deanie in this
I have
case,
a follow-up proposal, that Deanie stand up and make the 3 preliminary Senate statements that we just agreed on, and then Russ reads the proposal.
if,
We don't have to, any of us can do this, of course, but in my view, Russ will be I think his presence, his voice, his stature will have the greatest impact on this. That's what I guess.
I agree, and I am not a strong public speaker. I mean, I can speak, but when there's 100 people sitting there, it's intimidating to me.
You have to be strong in this,
well,
I know.
basically,
No, from the-
you're basically speaking to the committee here, right? You're standing right there speaking to the committee.
Really? Is that what you did? Because
Yeah.
sometimes when people are making
People come
public
up
comment,
here.
they go up and they speak
No.
there.
Sometimes they have people come and sit. Right.
Well, So
Okay.
the way it works, and that was my first time observing this, so I was trying to navigate this live, is that Loam, since he's presenting, will come and sit, right? Just like if we were to have somebody come and speak to us, they would come and sit. The public comment, which is what we would be part of, right, would be the public speaking, kind of where that little
Here sitting.
From a
standing.
microphone?
No, or
No.
people have just stood where they
No.
are seated also, I've seen.
No, but everybody came up, for this, everybody came up, and representatives from the different organizations came up, and they all spoke from that
Okay,
too.
okay.
So, I think I don't mind, and I obviously am supportive of whatever we are presenting here. I just think that for it to carry weight, it needs to come from one of the chairs, because the chair represents the commission beyond to the public. Right? So I think that's important.
Well,
I think
what
my
about,
proposal covers both, accomplishes both.
it does, but
tasks.
here's a variation. What if Deanie doesn't actually read anything, but says, I'm, co-chair of
That's right.
the commission, and we have spent many hours reviewing the potential consequences of LACFA's proposal for the historic district, and Russ Todd, a commission member, will now present.
Right.
So you're saying kind of you're like introducing.
I'm sort of introducing Russ. And
With a sentence too about, maybe,
Necessary, guys.
well, no, maybe she should say, we've spent a lot of time, and we've met with the attorney for LACFA, and we've had significant helpful communications with Eric Knapp. Russ, you take it.
Or what if I stood up, said, I gave the background. I read the background.
No.
The history.
No, it's too
No.
long.
I think it should be one speaker.
Mhm.
I do.
I think it's one speaker, and I think it should be Deanie, again, for the reason that it carries the weight of the Historic District Commission as a whole.
I don't think public presence carries as much weight as yours. And that's what we need this to be persuasive. She's already there as the chair, so her authority is already in evidence.
I don't think so. I disagree with that. I think the statement, the proposal in the statement needs to come from the chair. I respectfully disagree with that.
Of the impact of the...
Yeah, because the point is that the commission is making a statement to the zoning commission, right? And I'm just one member of the commission, so I don't represent the commission. The chair represents the commission.
But the chair can delegate.
But why would the chair delegate something that's so important, right? In other words, as soon as you delegate, you're degrading the importance of that statement.
I don't think so. And the continuity of your having presented to them before, I think, is intangibly useful. What do you think?
I will accept the decision
Of the court.
of the court. Deb, what do you think?
I could read the first sentence, the first paragraph.
I don't know if it needs to be two people. I think
Yeah.
you're right. I think it just needs to be
One. Yep.
I think that's not a bad idea.
What?
She reads the first paragraph and the sentence about we've met with and consulted with, and then passes.
Well, how about passing it off to Russ, saying, Russ Todd spoke to you last time, and he has a few points following up on his comments from the last meeting.
Because if I read the first, that's the one
I think
that's
that's
full
a
of,
good
that's
idea.
sort of the one that's full of authority.
Yes.
That's laying out our
That's a
statutory.
good idea.
I don't know. Why don't we have a trial? Deanie, stand up and
have a trial.
I think Deanie will do just fine, to be honest with you.
I tend to.
I don't have to look
I mean,
at all these people.
Your persona is,
But you need
to my mind,
protection.
very, very, yeah. Well, you do need to be able to be
I mean, I
heard
could
by the
speak.
full room.
Yeah. But you're looking this way.
Right, you're talking
At the
to, you're
board.
talking to the commissioners,
Right.
right? Yeah, you're not speaking to the crowd here, you're speaking to the commission.
So,
Carolyn, can I suggest this? Why don't you make your amendments, and then I will come over to your house,
Do a run.
and we'll practice, and we'll see what you think.
And it's literally reading it. That's
Yeah.
what I did. And I said, look, it's important that I communicate this. I'm not the best public speaker, so I'd like to read. And you're literally reading what
Right.
we draft out.
But in reading something, you have to
Project, I know.
project and
Yeah.
put in dramatic pauses and,
I think-
underline certain words to stress.
We
and-
still live in a gendered world, and male voices have a stronger impact. His voice is a deeper bass voice. I'm talking about sound. What is it that people take in? It just has a stronger impact than a female voice than Deanie or I could have, I think. And I still want to consider that. But not that I think Deanie couldn't do it. I know she can do it and do it well, but who would have the biggest effect on this group in this moment, which is so important? What do you think? You've been to these meetings. I haven't. What do you think?
I don't know who's on the commission and how they would.
And here's another thought about it, is they heard from me the first time. If they hear from somebody else that's also on the board, it carries more weight too, because now you're hearing it. 'Cause I'm afraid not afraid, but one downside is if I do it again, it sounds like it's all coming from me, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's why, again, I say that it's important that the chair make the statement, because the chair is to this group, the chair is making the presentation on behalf of the entire commission, and it'll read like that.
I'm starting to tilt towards Russ's view, just listening to the discussion, despite, I mean,
I accept
Sometimes when women do speak, because they don't have the same powerful voice, everyone is quieter.
I think you have an authority.
It's about the tonal authority. It's not about the official authority that she's the chair, which is important. The authority of this stuff.
I think Deanie can carry, I really do. I think, I've never seen you speak in public other than here. And you do carry authority
Yes, I think
with your presence and your stature, and
good.
so.
It's you.
well,
Make it really short.
And make it really big fonts.
Yeah.
And bullet or something.
Now, what I would suggest is that we're all there in case, and there may be discussion and follow-up, that as a group, we might stand up and help answer or respond to any comments.
We can say that, I could say that if there are any questions, and
Yeah, now, when I did it last time, I read it and sat down, right? And I will say at the end, I raised my hand again and said, because I thought they were about to vote on this, and I said, please note that we're here to work with the zoning commission and to work with these organizations. And that's when Paul basically said, we're not going to vote on this, not just because of the historic district, but for other reasons. Right? So, but it's a process where you raise your hand, you speak, and they're just listening.
Right.
Yeah. Now, and the other thing that's interesting here is I assume this is going to come after Halls Road.
The agenda's not out. It usually
have
comes
you
out
seen an agenda?
I've not.
Yeah.
I think it comes out usually on Fridays.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's going to be...
Yeah, so it'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah.
I have Halls Road on Thursday night, but I don't think I'm going to be able to go. But yeah, I don't know who's going to go first. And
Okay, good. I have one, that's right? Can I make one more, I have one more question on language, two questions. In the delivery, in the spoken version, in paragraph 1, the last sentence, included as an attachment, letter R, have we agreed that will be deleted from the oral presentation? That
Which one?
the last sentence of paragraph.
Oh, included.
Is that okay with everyone?
Yes, remove that.
No, I have.
Where
I have a-
are you reading? Sorry.
Right here, first,
Oh,
last
yes,
sentence, I
of
think
the
we can
first
delete
paragraph,
that.
yeah.
I have a subsidiary but important question. I'm still concerned, this is my primary concern, that the closing sentence of that paragraph then says that these groups continue to evaluate changes in the historic district on an individual basis. My worry is that LOM and everybody will say, well, of course we're going to do that. The existing regulations are not going to be altered, so they will still be considered on an individual basis after the overlay zone is approved.
It's the same thing for Halls Road.
So I'm afraid that, I'm just asking you, is that point stated strongly enough?
Well, you
or are
could
they
say-
going to be able to refute it very quickly?
Can you say instead continue to evaluate changes in the district on an individual basis, or, well, or say instead continue to evaluate individual changes in the district under the current
As has
zoning
happened in the past.
regulations.
You know, do we want to
Under
say
the
that?
current.
Under the current zoning regulations?
As has happened in the past, it's good.
Because that is what's happened.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
You can add that too.
Okay, I have one more, and then only one more, that just two places that I wanted to clarify language. The second place is in the head note to the attachments. So, here on this page, attachments,
Yes.
this page,
Okay.
the first sentence, second sentence. I'm still worried about, as in not listed out, should an overlay initiative move forward? Is that what we want to say? I'm not sure.
Well, you stated this, but then you're going to...
I know.
But you need some transition from
You
the
do.
first sentence.
Could we just together for a moment consider how to make that as smooth as possible?
Why does the attachment have to go at this point?
I don't know, just what we talked
I
about.
think the risk is, it's what we've talked about in the past. The risk is that the zoning commission says, you know, we've debated whether to stick with the current regulations, not endlessly, but for many months. And we've decided that it is appropriate to have a new set of overlay regulations, and proposals will be evaluated under special permits pursuant to that proposal. If all they have in front of them then is Loam's proposal,
Which we haven't seen the most recent one, have we?
Go ahead, John.
I mean, and assuming it's essentially like what we have seen,
Yeah.
it would be a disaster if they just voted on that.
I'm not questioning that. I'm just asking what Deb said. It sounds as if, I mean, you gave us your language earlier this morning at this meeting and for another place in another location in this document, where you said, if however, despite the HDC's recommendation,
Zoning
is
chooses to...
there some way to strengthen what we're saying here, or do you think it's fine as it is?
Does submitting this language, is this actually a proposal? Because if it's a proposal, I know that there's a proposal form, right? The Lime Academy, there's some form that zoning has for proposing an amendment to zoning.
No.
Now, what was the first page of the?
No, I know, but
Oh, I see.
I'm not sure it's a proposal.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, formally, if we want to, we had some debate about this. If we want
Right.
to really strengthen what our proposal is,
Right.
to stick with what you've got.
So I think maybe it should just say, as a second sentence, if, this is sort of just building on what John said earlier.
This is also a
If,
good
however,
question.
an overlay initiative moves forward, if,
Today, do you want to say today? Like, are we saying, you know, are we not going to want to make a change in 2 months or a month or whatever?
yeah,
I don't know.
If, just comma, despite our recommendation and overlay initiative,
Our proposal.
our proposal. I don't know. I just want you to look at it one more time.
Yeah, does it?
But
Be considered, or you want to be stronger? We don't want to say considered.
Russ raises a good question. I just don't know. I mean, for any proposal, do we need to fill in the cover sheet that Loam filled in?
Good question. I have no idea.
Right.
I mean,
Someone
we can
may
easily get an
decide.
answer from Eric, but we kind of have to reveal what we're going to propose.
Because that's new business, right? In other words, they would, because the zoning, at the meeting, if the historic district has a new proposal that's been officially submitted, they can say, oh, in addition to the Lime Academy proposal, we now have received a new proposal from the Historic District Commission.
Right.
If we don't submit that, then there's not necessarily an acknowledgement that the HDC has submitted a proposal.
Well,
Right.
maybe, why don't we get the cover sheet and say, here's what we propose, and it's stick with what we've got, and then this, whatever we come up with the transition language, if, however, the commission nonetheless.
That's true, that our proposal is, I'm just thinking about their process, right? We want to make sure that we're following their process.
Exactly.
That's a good point. You want me to ask?
Eric?
Can we look it up on
Why
the
don't-
on the website?
Can we just
Look
get
it up on
the
the town?
We can. Is there any harm in just filing the form?
Yeah, let's see. Let me pull the form up if I can find it.
Seems like no, but I don't know.
What you just sent me, Deanie, has the first page, so we can see what it looks like.
Maybe we should just say, should an overlay initiative move forward despite the Historic District Commission's recommendation?
Well, no, what the cover sheet is called a petition for amendment of the old Lyme zoning regulations.
Right.
And if we're billing this as a follow-up, I'm not sure we do want to
Sounds like
add
we need
it
an
as a
attorney.
petition.
Right.
Does anybody know an attorney who's worked with zoning before, other than Loam? Loam? I just don't know how to pronounce his name, sorry.
Why don't I just ask Eric?
Eric's the one to know, yeah.
I mean, at some point this is going to come out.
Framing it, and we're still considering how and in what form we can best put forward the HDC review. Would it
That's
be-
right.
If you say it that way, I think there's no harm. We're still considering how and invest in what form.
Right. That's helpful.
So I'm going to do two things. We're just about done. John's going to give me wording, specific wording changes, responding to whatever he has found in Long's most recent proposal, which I haven't read,
and Eric's.
and in Eric's most recent responses. And I will incorporate those. And then I will also do two versions of the proposal part, one to be read and one to be submitted.
Right.
And I will give you a revised version of the attachment after I incorporate John's wording changes. And then you all are going to read all three things. So you're going to read the oral delivery statement of the proposal, the written proposal, and the newly revised attachment. So you have three things to read.
Right.
And then if you could each respond to me and say, I think it's perfect as it is, I think it needs changes here, there, and, the next place, then I can do a final version, right? I mean, there won't be too many changes, but there may be some, and I truly think that wording matters, and that sometimes
absolutely.
these small, things that I'm calling your attention to can have a big impact, so. Is that okay?
Yeah.
That's my,
And I think the oral part needs to be drawn directly from the written part.
exactly, but with those sentences that you added a couple sentences that I'll.
Right.
Now, when does this need to be submitted? Monday morning?
We were
Is that
thinking,
right?
well, there are a number of changes that need to be made, so we thought, we'll submit it. I can print it.
Probably, John will take it probably a day or afternoon at least to get the specific wording to me. So let's say tomorrow, I can turn it around. It'll take me a couple hours to do this, but.
I'm concerned about our process. What do we, at some point, I think we should have a vote to accept whatever it is we're going to propose as the statement of the commission. And we don't have that final language yet. Can we approve it subject to minor editorial changes? I mean, we can also, I think we can approve the changes that Carolyn's already written down, Russ's sentence at all, and, the revisions you've made already.
We don't want that to go into the minutes of today's meeting, because if we state in the minutes, which will become public, that we've already decided on the version with edits to come, then it could be requested, and we don't want to submit it until Monday morning.
Well,
Let's vote. Not a motion to approve.
That's what?
A motion to approve what we have.
But then, doesn't that alert?
well, if we say that,
Why do we have to do it? Couldn't we just omit this step for the reasons that I was?
Well,
I think, Loam, somebody could say, you're saying this is your position. When did you adopt this position?
Can we do it electronically on Monday?
Martha, do you know if we can vote electronically? That constitutes a public meeting.
No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't vote electronically.
I just wondered.
We could adopt it today.
Yeah.
We don't have to post I guess we have to post the record votes. So
Right.
that would come out tomorrow, unless we're late. But it doesn't say what
But it could be requested
we have. Yes, but then,
by the attorney for Black.
I don't know.
We could say, well, the editorial revisions haven't been made. Well, give me your unedited version then. I still think we want to withhold that until Monday.
Well, we can say the unedited version doesn't fully reflect what we've agreed on. The editorial changes are necessary to put into writing what we've agreed on, and we'll send it to you as soon as it's available.
Okay, if that's fine, then.
I don't know.
I think you have to vote. I think you have to vote.
That's my concern.
And ultimately, everybody's going to see it on Monday. So if you get to a little bit of advance notice, so be it. The argument's the argument, right? We've stated our position. We stated the argument. It's up to the zoning commission and
that statement until Monday.
I'm less concerned about that. In other words, if our argument is strong enough, when it drops, doesn't really matter.
Look, we're a public commission. The
Right.
whole thrust of the statute
That's right.
is we need to be open and transparent.
That's right. Yeah.
I would be reluctant to send out an unedited version because parts of it would be misleading. It gets circulated, it gets quoted in the press, and it's not what we really have it doesn't have the language we've really decided on.
Can we make a motion and vote on the steps that we're taking here, and which includes drafting a final proposal document?
That will reflect the substance of the special meeting.
That's right. And then it's just the final document is the result of that vote, right? Or do we have to actually vote on the?
I think we have to approve the proposal.
You could approve it in principle
Yeah,
Right.
and
Subject
say subject to.
editorial
Revisions.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. And when as soon as those are available, they can be shared.
Well,
Right.
I don't think we have to say.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that that's what will happen,
Yeah.
in effect.
Yeah,
And
that makes sense.
And it's going to take you a while to finish those.
Think about all this.
You have all weekend.
I mean, I do have a few tasks, actually, when you think about it, there.
Right.
It will take a little time.
Right.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the proposal as discussed in principle, subject to forthcoming revisions that will reflect the substance of the special meeting.
How about just keeping it short? Don't say in principle, we accept the.
This is Martha's language.
I know, but I'm disagreeing with Martha.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
No, why do we have to say in principle? We're accepting the proposal subject to editorial revisions.
Yeah, that's fine.
We would use in principle for emphasis.
I guess what my reluctance is I think we need somewhere on record that we're accepting the proposal.
Okay, well, we have
Not
it, so you've made the motion.
Is there discussion? Then you can discuss it.
I second.
Okay, second.
All in favor?
Hey, discussion? Any more discussion? Okay, so we're considering Carolyn's language with the in principle and the, right?
I'm sorry?
We're considering the language you just,
Yes.
Right.
could you just read it again? Or
I didn't write it down.
Martha has it, right?
Martha?
Yeah, I can read it. Do you want you want the part about in principle in there?
Yeah, everything that Carolyn read.
Okay. Carolyn made a motion that the commission accept the proposal subject to editorial revisions.
I thought she
Does that sound right?
Editorial provision.
In principle. There's nothing.
Accept the proposal in principle subject to editorial revisions.
I think that's good.
Could we insert, accept the proposal stating the Historic District Commission's, a proposal to be made to the zoning commission concerning the Historic District Commission's views about a proposed new overlay zone.
I think you need to add that.
That's better.
Could you say that again?
What did I just say? Accept a proposal in principle concerning the historic districts. No.
A proposal that reflects is what you said.
A proposal to the
Zoning
Commission
That reflects the views.
that concerns the Historic District Commission's views about a proposed new overlay zone, subject to, but I don't know how to fit in principle in there.
Mr. Bluff.
I'm not really comfortable voting in principle. We're approving this, subject
right.
to editorial suggestions or revisions.
So are we close, Martha?
Okay, let me read that. Carolyn moved that the commission accept a proposal to the zoning commission that concerns the HDC's views about a proposed new overlay zone subject to editorial revisions.
Well, it's that then zone is subject to, we want to say for the last phrase or put the subject to editorial changes earlier, right? Because otherwise it modifies zone.
Right. Proposal.
You and Martha can work
Okay,
that
to
out.
accept a proposal, comma, subject to editorial revisions,
Good.
comma, to the zoning commission. We could do it that way.
And Martha, your sentence had the word concerns twice, so the first one should be changed to reflects. That reflects the,
Right.
see that?
Reflects concern.
And one other question, everybody, is do we say it's the Lime Academy's
Yes.
proposed
Yes.
overlay zone initiative?
Right.
Whatever it is technically called.
Right.
Is that what it's called now? It's not called LACSA anymore. It's called
We'll
Lime
spell it
Academy.
all out. And
Well,
see what
it's-
the exact wording
It's
is.
spelled out in the notes.
Do you have the cover sheet? Yeah. where is it?
I think it's
Thing
the
that-
Lime Academy. I think
But what is it?
It's because the overlay zone initiative, let's call it an initiative, submitted to the zoning commission on behalf of the Lime Academy, College of Fine Arts, Inc.
Okay, so it's still that, it's still that, okay.
This is very productive.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Yeah.
Who seconded it?
I did.
Russ did. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion to adjourn will be entertained.
So moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Martha.
Martha, very much.